Hello, welcome to the industry's first ever AIOps Summit. My name's Kieran Taylor. I lead product marketing for CA Technology's Agile Operations business unit. I love the concept of self-driving apps that Ashok just introduced, and it's hard to imagine that in the future my daughter may never have to parallel park. And that might be a few less dents that I have to pay for, right? That's the advantage. But for IT ops professionals, self-driving apps, well, that means less alerts, faster fixes, fewer headaches to deal with. And if you doubt how real that opportunity is, we've got a great fireside chat now with two leaders that live on the front lines of AI Ops. I'm joined by CA's General Manager for Agile Operations, Ali Siddiqui.
Thank you. And
Donovan Roos, who's Assistant Vice President of Global Technology Services and DevOps and Automation, the title keeps growing, at US Bank. As a reminder, you can join our conversation by tweeting your comments to hashtag AIOps Summit. You'll be included in that raffle for 5 Google Home devices. Let's start, Donovan, by learning a little bit more about your role at US Bank, what responsibilities you own, and kind of what you look over day to day.
Sure. So at US Bank, I've spent most of my time in the operations space, leading our critical application Tier 2 support, and owning enterprise monitoring. And recently I took a new role that is all about DevOps tooling for the completing end-to-end development pipelines and enterprise automation. So really looking at how we solve the problems in operations on both the front line of resolving problems quicker, identifying root causes quicker, and allowing us to get that remediation faster so we have quicker customer experience uplift.
And I know from conversation last night over dinner, we talked about just how unique and rich, if not complex, that environment is. Can you talk to some of the challenges that you've encountered from an IT ops standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a really large environment. We have 3 data centers. We have over 27,000 servers, routers, switches. We get about 15,000 incidents a month that we have to resolve as an enterprise. And at the core of it is we're a bank. We have a lot of revenue generating systems out there that we need to make sure we're keeping up and live and accessible for our customers. So how do we resolve these issues? How do we keep the environment healthy and up and running for our customers?
Ali, Ashok mentioned how we benefit from working with so many customers, and you're on the road constantly. You're always visiting with our customers. In those discussions, what are some of the leading use cases you see for AI Ops?
So first of all, thank you, Kiran, and really excited to be here. And no place I'd rather be than right here with all of you. So to answer your question, yes, it's a great pleasure to meet all these customers and talk to them. What I see, as Ashok was saying, and people before me said, like, AI Ops is a CIO strategic initiative. It is one of the key pillars. The key use cases, as Donovan just mentioned, is around root cause, number 1. Number 2 is alarm fatigue, how to reduce the number of tickets that are being generated so you get more IT operational efficiencies. But the 2 most compelling ones that I've been discussing with customers that we've been focusing on is around auto remediation, being able to use insights that you get from AIOps technologies to auto-remediate what's going on. Fix it. Why wait for it? Fix it. Second one, which Ashok mentioned, is around not just reducing MTTR, but how about negative MTTR? Your customer experience is important to you. How about if we let you know of the issue before it happens, and then can actually fix it so your customer impact never happens. It's negative MTTR.
Now, sometimes when we hear about these problems, they sound like problems we've had for years, like root cause analysis. Yeah. Why are we in a better position now to address some of those core use cases than we were, 10 or even 20 years ago?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Kiran. Yeah. I think there are 3 big reasons. Number 1 is the way the new technologies are shaping out, whether we are talking modern architecture, microservices, the amount of logs we are generating, the amount of metrics we are generating, this has become an urgent problem now. So it's just even in the cloud, as things move to the cloud, the amount of data is huge. So this is really an urgent problem. That's the first thing. Second thing is maturity of organization. I think IT ops now is realizing that they've got the basic monitoring in place, they've got the automation in place. How do we get to the next level of using insights and doing auto remediation? So it's basically about maturity of IT operations, of our industry, actually, I would say. And third is the building blocks are becoming more and more easier. So with open source innovation, which I'm really excited about, and you know, cloud architecture scale, we have the building blocks now to build this in an open fashion, so we can get to business outcomes and customer use cases much quicker now. That's what I think is driving a lot of this innovation and some really exciting times for all of us.
Indeed, yeah, absolutely. We heard a little bit from Tom this morning about this build versus buy decision, and he gave us some examples of companies that, you know, tried to build it themselves and maybe ran into some hard times. What was it like at US Bank? Did you look at the pros and cons of build versus buy, and what conclusion did you come to?
Yeah, so, you know, we looked into what can we do from an approach to create our own analytics space, taking in the data we're collecting across all the monitoring tiers that we have, aggregating that up and finding root cause faster. And there's some great open source tools out there to do that on your own. The difficulty is it's really not the core competency that we need to be focusing on at the bank. So we built that team. We spent many hours in development time, in education. You know, I've gone to different conferences and different learning sessions myself to try to understand analytics better and build that for our team. And at the end of the day, I can only invest so much and go so fast versus finding a product out there where day to day you're developing that, you have that competence, you have a bigger team, bigger support behind that, and I can keep up with the industry and the technology much faster that way. So, you know, for my job day to day, the easier path would be to buy if that technology exists out there. And I think where we were thought process wise, the technology is really catching up and captured there now.
Okay. That makes sense. You've seen some of our AI solutions at work. What are some of the potential benefits that you would anticipate realizing from AI ops?
So I think it's been hit on a few times here already today, but you know, we might spend the vast majority of our time when we're, especially in crit situations and any incident really, is identifying that root cause, doing the triage, doing the work to find out why is this down, why is this impact happening. And if we have the right ingestion of data into an AIOps tool, we can have the potential of really shortcutting and get right to the root cause analysis, so then we can get to the remediation piece. And if we can shorten that time or shorten the impact to customer, we're reducing the amount of hours we're spending in an operations environment on just identifying that cause and really building the best value for our people and our resources and time.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Ali, what advantages can commercial vendors have in terms of developing and delivering AIOps solutions, you know, versus, you know, kind of open source, cobble it together yourself?
Yeah, no, that's also a really good question, Kiran, and I think Donovan already made a really compelling case of what vendors need to do. I think there are many aspects. The key ones I would highlight is be able to bring in different diverse data sets, whether that's metrics, events, topology, as well as logs. Because really you need that diverse data set, both topology, metrics, not just events, to really get a holistic solution and make a compelling solution. So that's the first one. The second one is business outcomes. Let's not make solutions where IT and customers have to learn data science, spend time doing things, building your own solution. So focusing on business outcomes, building solutions which work out of box for key use cases, compelling use cases, that's the second thing vendors need to do better, and we can do, and vendors have shown the capability to do that, and work with customers to figure out the business outcome. Another aspect of this is, which Donovan also hit on, is open. Look, no data center is going to be a single vendor, right? So being open, so you can support all tools, not just your own tools, but at the same time bring domain expertise to the table, that even though you're supporting third-party tools, you bring to the table domain expertise that brings those algorithms together. Being as a vendor, we have many customers, a large set of customers, being able to bring that diverse customer experience and the data we get across all these customers, and then building the next generation of algorithms is really one of the other key aspects. And then, as I mentioned earlier, open source innovation is real. Is really leading the forefront onto this. Having open solutions built on top of open source, that's something also I think vendors and companies like ours, CA Technologies, can offer as a compelling reason for IT to adopt AIOps from vendors.
Awesome.
Yes, yeah.
Donovan, we've shared some of our vision. I know Ali's spoken to you about the future direction for AIOps at CA Technologies. What are what are your thoughts on the next steps that you would want to take on that AIOps journey?
Sure. So with the amount of data we're monitoring today, the amount of data we're capturing today, the next step is to take that data and like I referred to earlier, is identify that root cause automation.
Right.
And how can we get down to that point where I'm kind of getting handed that ready to hit easy button step from an operations perspective.
Right.
As an industry, we're doing a lot around Agile and DevOps, and I'm an evangelist of those things at my company. But what it does end up doing is that those faster change cycle times end up impacting operations in a way that you're having changes to the systems happening more frequently. You're having to keep your people up with what's coming from a change perspective, and how do you educate them on the changes and how that's going to impact production. The more we can do to easy path resolution for them, the better we're going to be in our entire DevOps life cycle. So first getting to that, and then I think in the future as we start to get really good in the industry around getting the auto triage done, is starting to hook that into some auto resolution, which it's kind of the nirvana. If I can know what's wrong and I can automatically resolution it, we have that self-healing environment everybody likes to talk about.
Right.
But I think the more we get into the AIOps space, the more realistic that becomes, and that's really where I'm looking for on the horizon.
You mentioned last night over dinner this concept of kind of training the system, and the system learns, right? And so like using the chaos monkey analogy last night, you're like, hey, my remediation should be tested, it should be optimized, it should be continually improved. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, so if we use the case study of a chaos monkey type system, where that's how you train your operations folks to be more effective, and we bring in AI into our environment, I can't take that AI system and say, based on your root cause analysis and automated root cause identification, take these actions. I just don't know. I can't adjust fast enough to keep up with, like I said, that rate of change. So to take that and put it in an operational environment and give it the ability to, whether it be emulate or do it on the real systems, where we're automatically causing that chaos in the system, and it's identifying the root cause, and then being able to have options of automated plugins to do an automated restart, do an automated spin up more capacity, whatever that might be, and trying that out and seeing what resolves it over time. It can experiment and do 1,000 resolutions in the chaos environment in the time maybe we could do a handful, and really learn over time the most effective way to automatically recover your systems. And
Ali, you agree? Yeah.
I completely agree, and Donovan, thank you for sharing that with us. You've nailed it. I do think quick iteration, having lots of data, and being able to see what's the right remediation path, using some techniques like chaos monkeys and even using machine learning and AIOps, bringing that to the table is really going to be a key going forward if we want to solve this problem. And I'm very excited, and I'm very optimistic that yes, we're going to see where things go in the IT industry. We're going to see the next level of this stuff, and we're going to see AIOps playing a key role going forward.
Yeah, what it comes down to is when we have an impacting issue, it's not even necessarily one person working on this issue even, right? So one of our main critical systems goes down. It's not uncommon for me to be on a call that goes, 8, 10, 20 hours. And it's not just me either, right? There's 10, 15, maybe 30. We've stressed the limitations of our phone systems and our web conferencing systems on these calls before, to the point where people are getting dropped because there's so many people. And the reason is because we have so much complexity in our environment, and you have so many people in silos that only that one person can identify this issue. Only that one person can identify this issue over in this other space. And if we can ingest that data up and have some intelligence, even if it's just on those type of calls and nothing else, the impact that would make on us being able to operate our environment in a proactive manner is huge.
One of the recurring themes I've heard today is around correlation, right? And we heard Tom talk about how data integration's not easy. And so a lot of the early AI solutions, it seems like they are applied to one data set. And Ali, you spoke about the diversity of data that you have to ingest, topological, et cetera. Can you expand on that and why having all that diverse data is necessary to gain insights?
Yeah, no, I think what Donovan said is the key insight is there are a lot of tools out there, number one. So all of them will provide different sets of data, and you need to bring all of this together into one place, correlate, as you said, Kiran, and that requires machine learning algorithms by itself, and that also requires domain expertise, because you really want to correlate the user experience. As IT delivers the best customer experience for their users, you have to relate the user experience all the way to the network data, the storage, the server. So that becomes a hard problem. And for that, you do need diverse data sets. You need topological, as you mentioned, and we spoke about earlier, and you need metrics, you need events, you need all of the above, and you need logs. And then the second aspect of correlation is you want this out of box, an easy button. And that's why I really like the way Donovan said it, the easy button. So if vendors and solutions start doing that out of box, it becomes easy, we will see the adoption. And this really then accelerates the journey to auto remediation and what Ashok mentioned earlier around negative MTTR, right? So if we can do that well, we can use these insights. Then we can use techniques like auto remediation to automate the things. So what you're really doing is now you're allowing tier 2, tier 3 complex problems to be solved, provide insight, and then have tier 1 people even fix it through auto remediation. So now you've really done a good job in really creating operational efficiencies and optimizing your service. And the last aspect around correlation is, as I said, if you can relate it to the customer experience, the user will get impacted before it happens. That's where I think the key lies, that your user is getting impacted, let me solve it, tell you about it, and solve it before they impact it, the negative MTTR. That's why I think that's a very powerful concept, and we are really focused on that.
Yeah, I love that in Ashok's presentation. Phase 0 is what happened. Phase 5 is nothing happened. Negative MTTR. Donovan, we talked a little bit last night about how AI, as Ali mentioned, can offload level 1. What happens to those jobs? How do you see organizations changing and evolving with AIOps?
So it's a common conversation that we have today is how can we leverage our tier 1 folks and our tier 2 folks to do more complex processes? Well, we can't augment our staff and augment our people to do more complex processes, move those complex processes down the value chain, if you will, unless we start taking our lowest hanging fruit and finding ways to reduce that time to resolve or reduce it entirely, to the negative MTTR standpoint. And to touch on that, it feels like a nirvana conversation, right? How do you get to a negative MTTR? Well, it's maybe the 80-20, or maybe it's even the reverse. Maybe it's the 20-80 rule. Is there are going to be some things that are low enough hanging fruit where you can get there, and it's going to be different for each environment. It's going to be different for each application. But if in hindsight, I can look at 3, 4, 5 different cases almost every week that I said, if we only knew, right, 2 hours before this happened, we could have just spun up another server. We could have just taken this action, and it never would have happened to our customers.
And those are pretty repeatable problems. Like you're recognizing them as a human. You're in your own pattern recognition.
Absolutely. There's almost we've resolved it now. But there's been situations where there's almost month over month the same issue happened. And it's a surprise every time. Well, it's not a surprise if you have the data early enough on to say, hey, our trajectory is going this direction. And we know what our peak capacity or we know what our failure point is. And so if we can identify those pieces of information and correlate them, and they're coming from separate systems, right? So I'm going to have to correlate my network against my servers, against my different traffic patterns to understand what's happening, and can I do that quick enough or early enough in the process to avoid it? Because then you have the minimum time it takes to take those actions to avoid the problem. But if you can do that work, then all of a sudden you're freeing time at your tier 1, where you can now cross-train them into what we call tier 1.5 sometimes, or 2.5 work sometimes. How can we stretch our people? It develops our people, it reduces our overhead costs, it makes us a more flexible environment.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we move those tasks of the people and the tasks together from the complexity standpoint, and just move everything up that value chain? And so we talk about shifting left all the time. It kind of is that opportunity to take the operations staff and shift them closer to the engineer or the developer side of the work too.
Mm-hmm. Ali, you agree? Yeah.
I completely agree. And to me, the two key aspects is, one, it's a journey. I think you need to first get the data correlated, as we spoke about. Then second is you need to be able to do root cause faster, reduce the alarm fatigue. So it's really a journey that every IT operation staff will have to take. And then you get into auto remediation, as well as Donovan said, get to tier 1.5 or 2.5. I really like that analogy. How do you take complex problems, solve them through machines and AIOps, and let your tier 1 people get insight so they can also deal with them and fix them? And then how do you auto remediate? So I think that's one big aspect, is the journey, how you want to take this, and then being focused on use cases really allows you to have a coherent journey over time. The other big aspect is, which we talked earlier about, you started the whole discussion on where we are going. So if you look at it, this is not about replacing people, and Donovan was very eloquent about it. It's about training them to do things faster. Because what reality is, as was said earlier on, all of us are going into Agile, all of us are going into DevOps. That means more releases, more things in a shorter time frame. All of us are focused on customer experience, which means quality must be high. That cannot be compromised. Right. So if you look at those constraints, it's very important that AIOps and machine learning be used to value add to that kind of environments of Agile and DevOps.
Ali, as you talk about that journey and the 3 steps in it, what's the appetite for automation as you visit with customers? Do you feel that there's real genuine interest in automation? And then I'll go to Donovan after.
Yeah, I think that's why industry leaders like Donovan are moving into automation and playing bigger roles. I think automation is a key, but you need to tie it to insight, and you need to tie it to root cause, and really have out-of-box solutions. So customers don't have to think about, okay, for this issue, what automation do I need to do for this insight?
Right.
The AIOps, the power of AIOps is we can deliver solutions that can do the right automation at the right time. Right. For the right set of customers.
Right. You just added automation to your title, so it must be happening.
Yeah, so I think automation is a really complex idea for a lot of people to get their head around, right? Sure, yeah. So I think the important thing is first is you get all the data collected, because really you need an automated trigger to be able to do an automated process. And whether that automation starts and begins with automated root cause analysis, I mean, that's still a win in itself. And really in the automation space, you need to start creating snowball effects, right? Automate something small. If you go after a huge use case, you're going to drown yourself. You're not going to have that first success. You're not going to get the buy-in and the organizational snowball effect going. So start with something small where you can impact a discipline. Like if you can lift work off of a tier 1 team, even through just automated root cause analysis, you're going to create that lift in capacity and also get some buy-in around your automation program,
Yep.
and you're going to be able to do the next more complex thing and the next more complex thing. Your team, your staff that's doing this work will understand more. Your vendor partners will understand the systems and the environment more, and you can start to get into more and more complex space, which is why I don't think it's unrealistic to get to that chaos monkey example where
Yeah.
we're really kind of building an IT ops shop on an automation backbone.
That's awesome. So it's not so far off.
No, and we might be looking like the first session. We might be looking at 2022.
Right, right. Yeah.
But it's possible.
Yeah.
With the technology and the way we're evolving, it's absolutely possible. It's on the horizon. If you're an IT ops and you're not thinking about this, in 4 years you're going to realize you missed the ball.
Yeah. We have a couple of minutes left. Any closing thoughts or comments, Ali?
So I would say, first of all of whatever I can think of has already been covered between Ashok and Donovan and Tom before that. But overall, I would emphasize a couple of things. It's a journey. We think many of the vendors, along with CA, have solved some of the key use cases. We are looking forward to get that out in the hands of our customers. We will iterate over that. I think this AIOps journey must be an iterative process with the customers. So I think that's going to be very key for us going forward, and I think that's going to be key for all vendors.
Yeah.
The second aspect is, I think, self-remediation and focusing on the customer experience. So really having a customer experience view all the way to the infrastructure network that supports that customer experience will be a key aspect of this journey. That's why I think your point earlier, Kiran, of diverse data sets is very, very important. Not just diverse data sets in terms of metrics, events, logs, topology as we talked about, but also different tiers from users, from application, from servers, all the way down to the network and storage. So this really requires a holistic solution, in my opinion, and I think that's what many vendors need to focus on, and that's what we are focused on.
Well, it's an exciting time for IT operations, and I feel like we could keep talking for another hour because it's such a deep subject. The conversation doesn't end, though, so if you want to talk with Ali and Donovan, you can follow us on hashtag AIOps Summit. Next up, we get to hear from our Senior Vice President of Products and Strategy for CA Technologies, Sushil Kumar. He's going to be joined by two companies that are also on the front line of AIOps. Coty, who is a leading beauty products merchant, and then Technology Services leader in Telenet. It's going to be a great session. Please stay tuned. Thanks so much for joining us.